How can you stop being afraid of your anxiety? It's actually practicing to be with your anxiety so you can stop feeling overwhelmed. In this video, I'm going to go through what mindfulness is and some concrete tips that you can start practicing today to help you boost up your mindfulness skills. If you're new around here, my name is Diana Garcia. I'm a licensed therapist in Florida. All right, let's jump in. What is mindfulness? It feels like a buzzword that everyone kind of throws around, but what's the actual definition? My favorite definition is the one that you can see here on the screen by Jon Kabat-Zinn. Mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So let's break that down a little bit. Mindfulness is the awareness through paying attention on purpose. So this is really when you direct your focus and attention back to either the here and now or an object. So for instance, the here and now could be like what's happening right now. I'm sitting here talking to you guys. I'm looking at my computer, right? In the moment. It can also be focusing on an object. So noticing my breathing, where is it most prominently in my body, right? In the present moment, right here and now. That's really important. One of the reasons why mindfulness is really helpful when it comes to anxiety is because anxiety is really future oriented a lot. We're focusing on worst case scenario, what could happen, things going wrong. And in the moment, in the present moment, when we come back, it's like, what's happening right now, right? Is my mind carrying me away somewhere where it's not helpful? Or even sometimes when we ruminate on the past, like that's already gone. There's nothing we could do about that. So in the present moment, it's coming back. Now, present moment also means that we are going to be with whatever experience is in the here and now, which sometimes can be uncomfortable because a component of anxiety is that our nervous system is activated. So we might be having some physical symptoms of anxiety, but mindfulness is going to help you practice learning how to redirect your attention to that, and also how not to get so overwhelmed by it, not to be so scared of our internal experiences. And then this non-judgmental part, I really like. It's like this focus on just describing and observing what's happening without labeling it, right? So if I notice like, oh gosh, I'm having shortness of breath, right? I can just describe it as like, I have a sensation of shortness of breath in my chest. Judging it would be like, even that, oh no, right? That there's like this sense of danger alert, right? That something's wrong, what's going to happen, right? Or I can't have this. And so we're just going to really practice non-judgmentally coming back to the moment. Anxiety, like we've talked about through this Decoding Anxiety series, is that there's this huge fear about our internal experiences, right? Because we might have a fear about something, a social anxiety fear, we're going to get judged, or even a specific phobia. Oh my gosh, what if I see a dog? Whatever the case is, but we are also afraid of what will happen in that moment, that physical reaction in the here and now when we are confronted with that fear, right? And the ironic thing with anxiety, like we've talked about, is that even just thinking about that fear can make that physical activation happen, right? Your nervous system is in that fight or flight mode. So part of the hope with the practicing present moment skills, it's another kind of term I use for mindfulness, is to really be able to come back into the here and now and like kind of beef up your ability to be with this experience. Because when we really start to practice that skill, it starts to remove a lot of the fear and resistance that actually keeps our anxiety in this stuck place. So I'm going to go through some like 3 or 4 tips that you can practice. First one I want to go through is just being able to notice and name what's happening for you. And I know that might sound simple, but that's really the core piece, right? Like that directing your mindfulness, your attention on purpose. So we have to know when something is getting activated for us. Different ways to do that, right, is just to start to tune into your experience throughout the day. So kind of asking yourself after lunch, oh, let me check in with myself. What's going on for me? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? Am I stressed about something? Kind of just doing like a check-in with yourself at different points throughout the day. That's a practice that's going to help you start to become more aware of what changes for you. Another thing, it's like we will start to notice some activation if we feel like our feeling has changed, or if we feel like a physical sensation is coming on. So if we can just start to notice it, however, because something has changed in your internal landscape, and name it. And naming it can be very broad. So sometimes I tell clients to name, if we're focusing on kind of beefing up that emotional skill of like, okay, name just the feeling. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling anxious. Notice the thoughts. Like, what are the thoughts? What's going on for you? Another way to really like supercharge this skill is to really kind of do this activity where you can start to label what's happening for you internally in these buckets. So I'm actually going to put something on the screen here. And these are all different categories. You can see there's the emotions, the thoughts, the bodily sensations, evaluations, an urge to do something, and a memory. And so it would really, really be helpful to practice this skill of noticing and naming and really supercharging this is to do a screenshot of this or just pause the video at this point and spend like 3 minutes. 3 minutes kind of redirecting attention internally. And instead of getting caught up to like what the actual content is, like, so what you're thinking about, just kind of label it thought, then emotion, then like when you notice something showing up. And you can even like kind of move your finger around if you're looking at this as you're scanning, like, okay, this thought, okay, now I'm having a memory now. And so not getting up so wrapped up in the content, but just starting to categorize these things, like these experiences that are happening for you. This is also going to beef up that non-judgmental part because we're not judging what's showing up. We're just starting to kind of label what bucket this goes into. So try it now, pause it. Okay, if you did this activity, comment below what showed up for you, what worked, what didn't work. Just tell us about your experience so we can all learn from each other. I find this is a really helpful experience when I work a lot with my clients, and I will literally in session pause whatever content they're going through. If I notice that they're activated and maybe they don't notice, and I'll ask them to direct, like, okay, tell me what's going on for you, but let's see if we can just practice like labeling what category that this experience is. Oh, this emotion, this thought, and like kind of just checking in with themselves, right? Just kind of coming back, redirecting that attention, right? Sometimes this analogy, it's like this spotlight, and we're going to kind of shift that spotlight to a certain sensation in the here and now. That's kind of really helpful when it comes to present moment awareness. Another piece of like coming back or checking in or practicing mindfulness, what's a very common one I'm sure you've seen, it's like the focus on the breath, right? So at any moment you can kind of redirect your attention to your breathing, right? Kind of checking in with yourself, not having to change your breathing, but just noticing it naturally. You can even say like, I'm inhaling, I'm exhaling. You can direct attention to where in your body you feel it. Now, the one caveat, if you are going to practice mindfulness with breathing, I'd encourage you not to do it when you're in this highly escalated moment, because a lot of people who struggle with anxiety actually then struggle to catch their breath, or they feel like they're hyperventilating, and then the focus on the breath just escalates that. So what I'd actually say is focus on another sensation in that moment. So for instance, I commonly will have clients redirect their focus on their feet on the ground. Tell me what your left foot feels like. Tell me what your right foot feels like. Focus on the sensation, like pick out every little nuance. Is it tingling? Is there pressure? Focus on both feet. That's a different kind of grounding than maybe the breath that might be easier for someone who's having this moment of anxiety. But you can practice the focus on the breath like in your day-to-day. So like I mentioned earlier, when you want to tune in, you can use the breath as a focus of attention, because the truth is our breath is always with us. So you can at any moment stop and just like, okay, focus on my breathing. Like, what's going on with my breathing? I'll often tell clients, you don't have to change the breathing. You don't have to do deep breathing if that's not helpful for you. You can just focus on the natural rhythm. Now, you can do deep breathing because deep breathing can activate that part of the nervous system that's kind of calm things down. But if you've been watching this series, you've really learned that my focus whenever I do any type of activity, even a mindfulness activity, the goal isn't to get rid of the discomfort, right? Or to try to not have it, because ironically that just makes it worse. It's more to just help you come back to the present moment, kind of check in and tune. And sure, some activities might help ground or regulate the nervous system, but the focus isn't to avoid. So again, you can use like any kind of attention to come back. Another kind of informal way when we practice mindfulness, it's you can use any experience in your day-to-day to like take that moment to fully be present in the here and now. Because the truth is, right, formal, meditations, and I have a whole playlist on that, is super helpful for a lot of people. And I find not only in my life, but in a lot of clients' lives, that that's really kind of hard to get someone to do consistently. And of course, I'm going to want to continue encouraging you to do that, but I also want you to do what's workable for you. So what I find that's really workable for a lot of people, it's using their like day-to-day life and activity that they're already doing, but using that as a moment of mindfulness. So some really common ones, the ones actually I use, I usually will do that when I'm washing my hands. So I will wash my hands and use that sensation of like, what does the water feel like? What does the soap feel like? And I love those Bath and Body soaps. So like I get all this really like smelly ones that have this good scent, and like I will focus on the smell. I've also been incorporating some self-compassion mantras when I've been doing that, but that's a whole other topic. If you want me to talk about that, let me know in the comments below. But either way, you can use that as a focus of mindfulness. You can do that any activity that you do, common activity that you do throughout the day. I also do it when I'm filling my water bottle. Like I try to just focus on like, what does the sound feel like when I'm filling the water bottle? What does the temperature in my bottle feel like when I take the first sip again, right? Using that as just a focus of mindfulness. And that could be less than a minute, but you're just building up that mindfulness muscle, tiny bit at a time. Again, use any activity that you normally do. Brushing your teeth, right? Those 2 to 3 minutes that you're brushing your teeth, and yeah, you should be brushing your teeth for that long, is to like, okay, can I use this moment as like trying as much as possible to come back to the moment? What I want to be really clear when you're practicing any of these mindfulness skills, the goal isn't to make your mind go blank or get rid of thoughts. That's just not realistic. And if you go in with that expectation, you're going to be sorely disappointed and probably be frustrated with yourself. That's not mindfulness. Again, that mindfulness is just to, if your mind starts to get distracted by something, right? So you're trying to brush your teeth and be mindful and you think, oh, what do I have to do tomorrow? Oh, I got carried away by a thought. Let me come back to the sensation. Can I taste the toothpaste? Can I notice the sensation of the brush in my mouth? Right? And then you might get pulled away again and you're just going to keep redirecting attention back, right? So that practice, like, oh, that spotlight back to this focus. Again, with the intention of just building that skill. This next one is all about grounding. And so when we're talking about anxiety, clearly there's moments when our anxiety starts to escalate. I will often tell clients, like if you can catch it before you're at a 9 or a 10, hopefully you've been like practicing scaling that. But again, like if you can at any point, like trying to come back and ground, that's going to be really helpful. Again, not with the intention to get rid of or avoid, but just to get you back into this here and now and regulating. Especially sometimes I find this not necessarily just with the anxiety, but when we feel overwhelmed by some intense emotions, which can also come with some anxiety, but that we start to feel really overwhelmed, that sometimes we need something to help us ground back in the here and now. What's super helpful with that is using your 5 senses, right? Because your 5 senses, again, are always with you. So you can use that to bring attention back. So one common way, it's like I'll ask a client, like pick something in your environment and describe it to me as if I'm blind or I've never seen it before, right? So if we look at this painting in my background, it's like, okay, how would I describe that? Well, if there's a square, it has this border that's kind of like tan, maybe woodish. There's these different kind of blocks that have this blue tint, more abstract. There's 3 blocks total. And then there's different types of blue that kind of feel like you're just like smearing, right? There's these blocks and then these blotches that smear down. Again, an abstract. There's this lighter blue, darker blue, things like that, right? So like really describing it and get focused on it, right? Really try to describe this experience. Or another really great one is just using your scent. So you can just notice like what you're smelling now, or I like to have like an essential oil roll on, and you can just kind of use that to help kind of come back. So one way is just like smear it in your hands, rub it, and you can just smell it. Right. Now, this is also great. You can use this in kind of in tandem with your breathing. So you can take 3 deep breaths, for instance. Again, if you don't want to do the deep breathing because that, or the focus on the breathing because that activates your anxiety, that's fine. You can just smell it and focus again on the smell, describing the smell. What are the different components in the smell? I really like this one. This is plant therapy. This is like for your throat chakra, which is ironic because I'm speaking now. But anyways, again, you can use any scent. Taste, right? You can pick any sensation of taste. There's some schools of thoughts that say if you pick like some sour candy and put it in your mouth, that's also just going to be really like going to focus your attention on the here and now. You can, if you don't have a sour candy like a Warhead, or I have like sour Skittles at home right now, you can just pick anything like lime, anything that you can put in your mouth that's really going to give you that immediate focus on that taste. And again, focus on describing the taste. Physical sensation. So I'll often tell my clients like, okay, tell me what your sock feels like on your foot. Describe that sensation. Or, hey, tell me what your shirt feels like on your back. Describe what that feels like. You can just use any physical sensation. And lastly, sound. So like take a moment and tune in with like, what's the sound around me? And even if you want to pause the video and try this now, like pause it and tune in and hear, like, what are the sounds, and see if you can pick out, not like the maybe overt ones that are so clear, but like see if you can pick out like the ones that are less clear. So for me, for instance, I'm next to a window, so I can hear like a bird in the background. Sometimes I can hear a car passing by the street. So again, you can use that in any moment. I mean, you can also be very intentional and you can put on a song and like focus on the song. But when I say focus on the song, like really getting into this like observing mode of like, what are the instruments here, right? Can I pick out the piano? Can I pick out the guitar? Can I pick out the different tones of the singer's voice, right? Really kind of like almost if you were like a conductor and you were picking out these different pieces of this song. So really activating that. So this grounding, this using your senses, I find is super, super helpful for people. And you can even start to experiment with different types of senses to see what works for you. So I want you to pick one of these or multiple and practice. So comment below, which one are you going to practice? Which is the one that you're leaning towards? Because at the end of the day, it's really important that you're building up these mindfulness skills in your day-to-day when you're not activated, right? Instead of waiting in those moments of anxiety when you feel overwhelmed and it feels like you're trying to completely practice a new skill. And that you can, but it's just going to take more work or effort versus if this is something that you already have in your toolbox, it's going to be a lot easier to practice it in these moments of distress. So again, pick one, practice it. Let us know in the comments below which one you're doing. Hopefully this video was helpful for you so that you can apply some of these skills in your day-to-day life. Stay tuned for my next video in this Decoding Anxiety series. Might not be next week because I have another one in mind that I really want to share with you guys, but stay tuned. I really want to give you more skills to help you learn how to overcome your anxiety. And like I always say, I encourage you to continue nurturing your mind, body, and soul, whatever that looks like for you guys. Thanks.